All right, Kevin, so we have 1,500, we did 3,000,
Right.
and now we're on to compounding. What are you using here to get these marks out?
Well, as he mentioned before, we're going to use the Bigfoot Random Orbital Polisher. So it's got a lot of motion to really move the abrasives around we're going to be using, the compound, and it also rotates in either direction. And depending upon how much abrasive we're using and the shape of the panel will determine how much this will spin and conform to the panel. And I'm going to be using mcguire's M105, which is a super micro abrasive technology, which essentially means that I'm going to be able to easily remove that 3,000 grit.
I think we even tried before, we got it with 1,500. It just took a ridiculous amount of time to do it.
It could do it, but the smart thing as far as time and overall performance is to refine as Jason did. And so this product will easily remove that.
All right, one of the things that I've learned from you is how to prime the pad properly. So this is kind of, it was something that I didn't think about before I met you, and now it's kind of, it wasn't just something you do and then move on. It's like, it is so important.
It's very important.
So I want to see.
Sure.
I'll hold this for now, grab that.
So we put this here.
And then
we're going to, just in the true sense of the word prime, we're going to prepare this to use. And it takes quite a bit.
Yeah, so let me
there's
take
a lot of surface area.
Let's take a look at that. I mean, look at that specific amount. All right, now what's the next step?
Rub it in. Now some people would choose to use something like a spatula or an old credit card or something. I just massage it in.
Okay, and remember, this pad beforehand was brand new. So we hadn't used it, we hadn't primed it, hadn't been anything, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. And the idea is so that if any one of these strings happens to touch paint, we're trying to make it so that it's got a load of abrasive on it, so
already.
It will scrub paint away.
Okay.
So it's very efficient. That's why it cuts so rapidly and consistently.
Now most people would think, okay, now you're ready to go to onto the paint, but you wouldn't do that, right?
That's right. That was priming. So now I'm almost ready. I would add just a bit more that it doesn't take much, maybe that much.
Okay.
And that's going to hopefully, well, the idea is to keep that rolling around between the paint and this microfiber, always agitating.
Got you. So most people, I know I've been guilty of that, is you sort of just, you prime it real quick, or you spray a little water or whatever, and then you go to town, and people don't, especially with these microfibers,
right,
realize that priming or seasoning the pad, if you will.
That's the right word.
Seasoning
is the proper word.
Yeah.
It's never used, but you're right. We have prepared it. It's moist. It's got plenty of abrasive throughout. It is seasoned, ready to use.
All right, show me the next step.
I'm going to kneel down here.
Yeah.
Need to be stable. Keep this cord away from the paint. And we go.
All right, that was pretty cool. The thing I love watching about you, is when you watch other people, or you think the faster your arm goes, the more work you're doing. When in fact that's not the case.
Well, that I think started because previous to using random orbital polishers, the go-to machine was the rotary, like a handheld drill with a lot of torque, a lot of power, and at the time, in the 60s, the 70s, even before then, these machines they were not designed for slow speed. They would run at 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 RPM, and you automatically had to be rapid moving, because if you held it there,
it was game over.
This thing rotating so quickly on these softer paints,
right through.
It was game over.
Yeah.
So the natural inclination to be smart and not destroy paint was to rapidly move it, and that just kind of carried over. But it's really, with this type of machine, that's not the efficient way of doing things. We want to use this more as a honing tool. We want to have time for it to work.
Yeah.
To work that over. So that's why I do it that way, and that's why the standard is to go about 1 inch per second. There's other ways to do it, but that's worked very well for this system.
And now these fibers have been, crushed, or they look like they're squashed.
That's right, they are. And not only are they squashed, but because there's so much paint residue and we've been using abrasives, these strings can start to tie together.
And what happens when they tie together?
Well, instead of being microfiber, they start to bind.
So they're
And
just
they're now they're fiber, and when they drag, they can cut in deeper. So you'll get an inconsistent cut, and you'll start to see scouring.
Yeah.
And you'll start losing actual speed of cut because this paint residue has buried your abrasives and buried your strings, and now there's not much cutting action.
So the two things that I took away from working with you and learning from you is priming the pad or seasoning the pad is not just like a thing that you need to do. It's like vital before you polish.
Yes.
The other thing is how much of the residue has come off the paint and is in your pad when you then go back and polish again. If you're not cognizant or conscious of that, you could be, because of the microfibers coming together, you could be doing more damage and saying, man, why can I not get these swirls out?
Yes.
And most of the time it's because of that residue.
Yeah, and it's very critical if you're using microfiber for the purpose of final polishing, because there is a microfiber disc that's made specifically for finishing. It's designed for that.
And this one we're using is obviously cutting.
Is a cutting.
Okay.
And so if long term, if you're doing the whole car or the door, you would regularly clean this by blowing this clean with compressed air if you have it. And if you don't, you would use a microfiber towel and rub it against there and just throttle the machine against it to pull away the debris and the excess moisture into the towel.
And it varies from car to car, so it's not like after 3 passes you must wipe it off, or 1 pass.
Sure.
It varies.
Yeah, it's variable.
And this one's super soft, so I mean, it's just kind of peeling off the car at this point.
And if you're not sure, then the smart thing to do is do smaller sections and clean more often.
Yeah,
if you don't know, because most of the people that will be working on cars today will not be working on single stage where you can actually see the color of the paint. You're going to be working on clear coat.
And typically, so we did, let's say 1 pass or 1 or 2 passes on here, 1 session, and you're going to look at it, you're going to wipe it down, right? You'll wipe it down, you'll take a look at it with, do I even have my light? Yeah, look at that, I have my light. You take a look at it with your light and you say, okay, and at this point, it's going to be a little hazy. That's typical, that's normal,
That's
correct?
typical, sure. We've cut a tremendous amount of paint off. You can see the condition that the pad's in.
And if you look, I mean, remember 5 minutes ago, it was sort of dull, right? And now it's got a little bit of shine to it. There's swirls and whatnot.
But we're looking for the key we're looking for is any unusually deep scratch marks compared to the rest of the panel. So if you see those, then we would reapply and just do a strategic, targeted, repolishing of that area.
So it's normal for you to look and say, you know what, I need to go back, clean this out, and hit it again. So in this case, are we going to do that again, or you want to go straight to polish?
I think we're looking pretty good. We're going to just double check, because Jason was able to create such a consistent
So now, for example, if Jason didn't finish with the 3000 and he finished with the 1500, and then we went straight to here, we'd have a whole lot more work to do right now.
We would probably have to clean that pad once or twice to get the same level of reflection.
So we did more work in the beginning with a 3000 grit, but it made our lives easier during the compounding and polishing stage. That's another
the thing to learn that it's going to be difficult for most people is the safe way to remove the defect, if it's reasonable to do that, is by sanding.
Yeah.
The technology that's gone into those sanding discs is phenomenal.
It's incredible.
When you magnify them, you look at the structure. It's not just somebody sprayed some glue and dropped in some debris. It's fantastic technology, and it makes it so that this would have taken so much more time, was it 10 years ago? 15 years ago, and it would be very dangerous for the average person. We never would have recommended that the average person with no experience slap a sanding disc on some sort of polisher and sand their door.
It's incredible what's happened.
Yeah, and now that's the smart way to do it. There's no heat buildup when you're sanding.
Yeah.
There's just endless, it's very controlled, so.
So the next step is polish. You ready for that?
Next step, yep, I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. So we compounded, it looks phenomenal right now.
It does.
But there's one more step that we have to do, which is polishing, because we just put scratches in the paint to take out the 3000 grit, right?
Right, we had a surface that wasn't perfect. It had defects, and through the sanding, Jason, he used a procedure of, if you think of it as a controlled defect, we took out a defect by installing a controlled defect, I guess.
That's true.
The sanding process made it more controlled, so there was more consistency there. And then he did the second step, to remove the controlled defect and made my polishing much easier to accomplish.
So then you took out the 3000 with the compound.
That's right.
But the compound also left little swirls
It's
that
the
we
same
just
thing
showed.
again, it's a refined controlled defect.
Got you. So the last step to get out the very fine scratches that we have is to polish.
Right, we're going from what's considered a compound or a heavy cutter to something that's a finishing polish, which still has an abrasive in it,
Sure.
but it's very mild by comparison.
And now the big thing is you primed for the compound pad, but a lot of people, oh, maybe you don't need to prime, this pad, but it's true. You actually do need to prime this.
We do need to prime this.
Or
because
season it, as you
we
say.
want to start using that term
Yeah.
because I think there's a misconception of prime, because one guy may think, well, priming, I'll just take a mist of water and burst it on there, or maybe some detailer spray. I've primed, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a deliberate attempt to make a very consistently coated pad with our compounder polish.
Yeah, because
So-
sometimes you'll have, compounder polish on a little bit here, and there'll be a blotch that's missing and a blotch
Right,
that's
that's
missing.
it. You could imagine that if you put some here, and it did not spread, then it would not be consistently layered, and you might have some accumulation of abrasive there that could cut deeper.
And what that means by cutting deeper is you basically are going to have some swirls that you're going to be fighting to get out.
Right. That's
So
right.
consistency is a way to sort of, combat these
Yeah.
holograms or swirls.
What we want to think of is if I've had miniature ball bearings or marbles and I could set them on there, we wouldn't want them in a stack. We'd want to flatten them out so they were all side by side, one by one, equal depth. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Let me see how you prime
So
again.
we're going to prime, but we don't need near the amount of, because we're not dealing with microfiber strings. There's not as much surface area there.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So we use much less to prime. Try to get it looking consistent. It will spread some with the machine motion. There's a little dry
Yeah,
area
usually
there.
little spots here and there.
Yeah.
But it's so funny, people, the misconception of priming, including myself. Spray detailer. Oh yeah, just to put a little bit on there, you're good to go. Or just to do the X or something. You know what I mean?
Sometimes it takes somebody to say, well, this is what's sensible. That doesn't seem sensible. This seems sensible.
Yeah.
And once you try that and say, wow, I see some success here, I'm getting a much better result, and then you spread that information, pretty soon it becomes accepted.
Do you see how much time he just spent putting that in there? That blew my mind the first time. I was like, wow, I can't say it any better. I thought it was just like, oh yeah,
And
okay,
that
it's like a
spreads
thing.
like that, just,
Yeah, everything is coated perfectly
it's
now.
entering the pore structure of the foam. Okay, so that's good. And now I would say we just need a very little polish, maybe just a drop. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to
Hit it.
repeat the process.
So same type of arm speed.
Sure.
Are you changing speeds wildly?
I use the same speed. If I saw that the backing plate was rotating unusually rapidly, I would drop the speed down. That's what I'm using my speed for. And that's what most guys that polish professionally, they don't generally add more speed so they can polish an area 5 or 10 times more a second. If we want to do that, we would just go over it again or use slower arm speed.
And
So
what are you on now?
I'm on between 3 and 4 in this machine. So I'm looking at rotation. I'm looking at not just the oscillation, because the motor controls that. That's constant. But what I'm looking for in a random orbital is this pad moving at all, or has it stalled and essentially stuck in one place? So we want some rotation. So we use that as our guide. If we see
A black Sharpie marker.
a black, a contrasting mark, and at some point you don't see it anymore because there's plenty. So, okay, so that's it.
All right, well, let's take a look at it. Let's wipe that off. Take your light. Looks halfway decent. I think you still got a little bit of polishing to do.
I think so.
But this is the would be considered the last 10% of the job, right? You know, you're getting nitpicky and kind of going, you know what? I need to polish a little bit more. Maybe I need to back off. Maybe I need to. That's the part where it's hard to just say, you know, step 2 is to polish 17 times. Every paint is different, and it's hard to verbalize what to do. But this is, you know, you would take your light and you go in here and you say, okay, it's reacting this way, it's reacting that way. Maybe I need more. I got to go back to compounding, or I don't know. You know,
it could be. I could have had some tilt on the machine, not realizing it in the position I was in. I couldn't. Maybe I should adjust my positioning in relation to that panel. Maybe I needed less speed.
Maybe there's a little booger that I got on here, and then you scratched it. There's just tons of variables.
When you're going from a compounding step to a finishing step, you got to imagine those peaks and valleys we've formed. So initially, when you do your first cut, we're just riding on peaks mostly, and we're cutting a tremendous amount of paint rapidly. And that debris will accumulate on that pad, and it will cause its own scouring. So the smart thing to do what we did. We do a pass, we wipe it down, we check our work, and if it needs a continuation, we'll clean the pad to get rid of all the paint residue and accumulated debris, and repolish. You know, add some more polish and do it again. And I would almost guarantee you, it will be vastly improved.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Kevin finish this area because I'm dying to see and to show you guys the before and after.
The 50-50 or before and after shot is the best I've seen in my career based on the constraints we started with. In reality, I would have never taken on this as a job, instead would have suggested a professional repaint. Here, I'm using different temperature lighting to look deep into the paint while the room is completely dark and no outside light is distracting my eye. Although the transformation is remarkable, despite the lack of paint, no clear coat, and DIY paint job, what struck me most on the plane ride home is that despite all of the Mustang's issues, Jason, Kevin, Chris, Mike, and Derek spent most of their weekend doing exactly what they do during the week. So, not only did I learn the technical aspects of wet sanding and residue control, but that the best professional detailers are, in fact, the best because they're willing to practice and not scared to fail. Most of all, I hope this video inspires you to practice. Whether it's on the paint, or the wheels, or the interior, the old adage is right. If your goal is to be the best at anything, it takes practice, practice, practice.
All right, we just arrived at Matt's house. It's early the next day, and I'm going to surprise him and see what he thinks. So I'm gonna walk in the house. Here we go. Walking in. Matthew Farah.
Yo.
You like to
see my car now?
Your new whip?
Oh boy. Here we go. It's time to see. If you shake that around, you can get bad audio.
Oh, whatever.
Let's see what a $300 paint job looks like. Holy shit. That's really shiny.
It's craziness.
Wow, look at that. That's wild.
Crazy, right?
I can't believe how shiny that is.
That's like nothing like it was.
That's so crazy. And you hate to say it, you can really see all the dents and stuff in it now.
When it's shiny, the dents are
yeah. That is wild. It's so shiny. Is there any paint left? Is it because you said it was super thin?
Yeah, it was like 3 mils, and now and I show it on camera. We go down.
Now it's like 1.
Yeah, 1.5. There's nothing there.
Oh, I mean, it's really. That's amazing. How long is this gonna last? How long will it get shiny like that?
As long as you maintain it.
Like if I wash it with gentle soap with like AMMO stuff and I keep wax on it, will it stay shiny for a while?
Absolutely. Yep.
just
But you
wanted to
couldn't.
go-
But you couldn't do it again. That's
No,
a
you wouldn't wanna-
one-time thing,
Yeah,
right?
you wouldn't want to go polishing that again.
That's crazy. Did you vacuum it?
No. I tried.
I was wondering if your obsessiveness would mean you had to vacuum
I thought
it.
about it maybe 50 times, and I was like, dude, if Matt says anything about that, we spent.
No, I don't care. I was curious because I figured you were obsessive and that
When
you
I
would
first
want to do
pulled
it.
in, I started the vacuum, and they were like, seriously?
They're like, "What are you doing?"
We have like 40 hours on this. Like,
So
pick your battles.
you
here.
don't say how much I paid for the car, but you know how much I paid for the car.
Yes.
Is the detail worth more than the car?
With the guys that were there, Jason Rose.
Yeah,
me,
and Kevin?
Yeah.
So it's,
I would-
it's
I would
basically
say-
almost a 5-figure detail.
Yeah, it was definitely. Yep, it was
A
probably
5 figure-
just over that.
Just over 5 figures?
Yeah.
Because I paid 4 figures for this car.
Yeah.
The 4-figure car with a 5-figure detail on it. It's amazing. It looks so good.
I mean, look at that trunk lid.
I know the trunk lid when you put on Instagram was so. Look at this. I could shave in that. Holy, well, I look pretty shitty today, don't I? I haven't shaved. It's amazing.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
That was a lot
And I
of
saw
wet
you
sanding.
spend some time shining the exhaust pipes
Yeah,
too, which is
yeah,
funny because I'm
yeah.
taking those off. I've got a new exhaust I'm putting on in like 2 weeks, and I feel bad. I have to paint it. I have no choice.
Well, the
People
thing
on
was-
Instagram are like, "What do you mean you're gonna paint it? Like, look at all." I have to. I'm replacing this body panel, all the quarter panels with wider bodies.
And
So
there's right here, I can't.
There's a dent- there was a dent there.
There's Bondo,
Bondo,
like
yeah.
crazy right there.
it was a police car.
Yeah.
Someone whacked it. I mean, considering it's Bondo, it's not that terrible, but it's gorgeous. The paint is unbelievable.
We didn't think that we could get it at first. We were like, dude, seriously?
It's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally, this is like what a $300 paint job. Like, you can see all the dents.
Do you know who you should show?
Huh?
You should show the guy who owned it.
I should show the guy who owned it. He'd probably cry.
Yeah.
It's amazing how shiny that is. I can't believe it.
That
I actually kind of feel bad that I have to paint it now, but I don't have a choice.
Nah, it was a good experiment. You know what I mean?
That's wild.
It's kind of like a big piece of scrap metal. That's what I said on the video.
Yeah.
This is a big piece of scrap metal that
Yeah.
is like we can drive.
But it's awesome to drive, isn't
Yeah,
it?
so fun. So fun.
It's so
It was
fun.
so shiny this morning when I left. I felt like a rock star. It's like,
I feel like a rock star when I drive it. That's fantastic. I can't believe how shiny it is. That's crazy.
the before and after was worth the 40
Are
hours.
the people gonna? Thanks, man. Are the people gonna notice the Viper I've got right there?
Oh,
Look at that.
yeah.
I've got a Viper right there. So, yeah, Viper.
We
The
got
glamorous life of Matt Farris. Fox bodies with $10,000
What about
details.
this beautiful beast in the driveway?
Check it out on the Smoking Tire right now. Chevy Volt versus Cadillac ELR. You have to have your proper assortment of cars. So you've got this. This is gonna be my race car, right? And then we've got the press car, which I'm testing this week. And then we've got the crew vehicle over there, Honda Odyssey 2008.
yeah.
And then you've got your Volt for daily running errands. That's how we roll here.
Then I got behind the Viper on the way here, and when I got pulled out, I was like, dude, that thing's awesome. I'm like,
Did he know where you were going?
He's like, I should have guessed. Anyways, the car's done.
It's amazing.
Exciting.
The engine is fresh. You didn't do anything under there, did you?
That's it.
It looks amazing. I'm genuinely impressed. I want to put it in the garage now before it gets like dust on it or anything.
Sure.
Let me move the Volt and we can put it inside, and then we'll go grab some breakfast in the Viper.
Let's do it.
That's a really fantastic. It was Jason Rose and Kevin Brown. They're on the podcast, Smoking Tire Podcast, next week. Unbelievable job. I had no idea it was even possible to make something that was that
I'm not
bad.
even kidding. I wasn't sure that.
I didn't think it could either. It's a horrific. Hey, Conrad. Conrad's a baller. You gotta have house cat. My little lion.
Hey. Look at you.
I had no idea it could be that good. That's crazy. Even like inside the O, like even the door handles are like shiny, and
Yeah.
like the lock cylinder is shiny.
Yeah,
like,
we actually like got in there, and this part of the video that.
and actually the
talks about
trim looks a bit better too. Did you guys do
that.
anything
Yeah,
with the
we put
trim?
some, protect it and stuff.
I mean, it's kind of shot. It's
I mean,
old,
it
but
needs
it's.
to be replaced, but
I'm not gonna replace it.
No.
It doesn't fucking rain, dude. It keeps water out. That's
Yeah.
all I care about.
it's got glass, it's got rubber. It's
No,
all
it's
good.
ridiculous. I cannot believe it. Let me get the keys to the Volt. Let's put it inside before it
Yeah, don't scratch
dusts
it.
on